This morning, we're handing out Thanksgiving leftovers, recognizing politicos in Texas and beyond who've excelled through the adversity of 2020 and those who cannot wait for the year to simply be over. Among the honorees, Clay Jenkins, Ken Paxton, Greg Abbott, MJ Hagar, Kay Granger, Glenn Whitley, Louis Gohmert, Chris Hollins, and many more.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to you. Hope you got a break over this Thanksgiving weekend. We're doing something different on our program this morning. It's an annual tradition here at Inside Texas Politics. We're spending this morning celebrating the great work that our politicos do in Texas and the not so great work. So for that, this is our annual Turkey Awards, and we're handing out turkey legs and turkey gizzards. So the legs are going to go to those politicos who've had a great year, who have excelled through the adversity. And the gizzards go to those who probably haven't done as well as they probably had hoped this year, who are really experiencing the worst of 2020. So joining us to hand out the awards this morning, our roundtable crew, Ross Ramsey, co-founder and executive editor from the Texas Tribune, Bud Kennedy, a columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and of course, Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Thanks for being here.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We all have our lists that we've gone through, but I'm going to start things off just to get them going this morning. I'm going to start with a controversial one. You'll probably have some controversial thoughts about some of our choices this morning, but the first award, this is a leg, a turkey leg, going to Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins here. He listened to doctors early on. He made unpopular decisions in the pandemic, and he stood by those. And unlike the California governor, Gavin Newsom, Judge Jenkins actually abided by his restrictions. He didn't go out to the French Laundry to have a nice meal. In fact, I was kind of teasing the judge a few months ago about his hair kind of looking shaggy. He said, I can't go out and get a haircut because we were still in the red zone. So he did abide by what he said there, too. Anyone disagree with me on that?
He did practice what he preached, but he also had a little trouble getting the Dallas County Commissioners to go along with a couple of his ideas. Yeah,
and in fact, the commissioners did say early on they checked his power a little bit and said you can't just make these unilateral decisions without coming to us first. But I for my money, overall, I think Judge Jenkins did a pretty good job in 2020. So my hat is off to him at least.
And I think he had a lot of courage doing what he was doing.
Yeah, he did.
Because it was not as popular. Yes, and the longer it took, then that's when the commissioners sort of checked his power. Yeah,
indeed so. And he was a favorite target on social media and on Twitter for many on the right. Our first Gizzard Award. This is from Ross Ramsey this morning.
I don't think this is going to be very controversial. It's Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas. He had 8 top aides, most of them lawyers, blow the whistle on him and say he was using the office illegally, that he was accepting bribery. All 8 have been taken out of office, either fired or have resigned. The FBI is investigating. Some of the 8 have filed litigation over the retaliation for blowing the whistle. It's a big mess at the Attorney General's office, and I think we're going to hear more about it into the new year.
Yeah, indeed, it's a huge mess there. But what's striking to me, and we've talked about on the program before, is that you have some Republicans saying that, they're not coming to his defense, but they're also not saying that he should go. And I wonder if that's going to change as we finish out 2020. Any thoughts on that, Bud or Bernadine?
Well, I think the Republican Party is beginning to realize that he's the big turkey going into the next election cycle, and that whether he regardless of guilt or innocence, he's a drag on the rest of the party in the ticket right now.
Yeah,
he's like a Teflon politician. He's under indictment as it is, and he's still in office. It appears as if everything he does, he stays in office.
Yeah, and of course the big question is what's going to happen if indeed there is an FBI investigation like the Associated Press reports. When might that come to fruition? Those could of course take months to actually complete out if that is indeed the case. Our next award is a turkey leg this morning, and that is Bud Kennedy's here.
I think I'm going to give a big, juicy turkey leg to Governor Greg Abbott. There was a lot of concerns about this election, how it would go. Everybody was worried. The governor did a couple of things that he caught heat for. He added a week of early voting. He got sued for that by his own party for extending early voting. Then he added 3 weeks of early drop-offs. You could drop off your mail-in ballot at the county elections office. He got sued for that by the Democrats. They wanted to have more locations. So he caught heat from everybody over, but it wound up being a historic election. 11 million Texans voted. It went pretty smoothly. There were a lot of mail-in ballots to count. But I think the governor made the right call on both these decisions.
All good points there, Bud. Do you think that third week of early voting is here to stay?
Boy, it sure worked well because it helped the election workers spread out the mail-in votes and counting the mail-ins. But they also had trouble filling all those slots. And if there's going to be 3 weeks of early voting, there probably need to be fewer polling places because staffing them all is a problem.
Yeah. And of course, you heard Bud's adjectives there describing the food. Bud's not only a political columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, he writes about food too. So
I thought that's why I was on this show.
Well, yeah. So expect more of that as our program goes on here this morning. Bernadine, you have the next award this morning. It is a gizzard.
Yes, I'm giving a gizzard to MJ Hager for her campaign strategy in the U.S. Senate race. It was amazing that she failed to reach out to Senator Royce West, because in any election, you always reach out to your opponents, especially someone with the caliber of Senator West. Not only did she not reach out to him, she pushed a narrative that the Republicans say when they say that the Democrats take blacks for granted. Because in an interview, she said, well, it was actually a debate. She said that Royce West would support her merely because she was a Democrat and they wanted Democrats to win. Well, that set up the stage for him to deny that he supported her, which gave her, the Senator John Cornyn, an opportunity to run commercials showing the fight among Democrats. It just didn't make sense that she would have not knowingly take that in consideration.
Yeah, you'd think she would shore up support as her campaign probably looked, and Democrats look at her candidacy for U.S. Senate. Ross, any thoughts on, I mean, you have a much more statewide lens. Any thoughts on what else she might have done wrong?
Well, she not only didn't get a turkey leg here, she never got legs on her campaign. It just never took off. Part of it was the runoff was late in July. It took her a while to raise the kind of money that she needed to make her name known. And she went into, as we started early voting, 40% of the Texas voters had never heard of her. So this campaign really never got off the ground. It really never went anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one more gizzard here this morning. That's going to be my gizzard, and this goes to all of Congress. We put the entire U.S. Capitol up there on screen for good reason. The unemployment rate here in Texas, September, October, I believe, is 8.3%. And so this award is for every single Texan in Congress. It's going to Congress. Here's the deal. Stop blaming the other side. You guys came together once before to actually pass stimulus relief. It's needed again. There are millions of Texans who badly need that as we go into the holidays here. We just went through Thanksgiving. Food banks are saying that they need all the support they can get. So bottom line, I think this is why Texans elected you, to help out in tough times. So this is for them. Please do your job. Come together. Stop blaming the other side. Cut out the partisan politics to at least help the fellow Americans. All right, our next award this morning, that is going to be you, Ross, and somebody we've had on the show here recently.
Yeah, I've got a leg here for Chris Hollins and for other election officials, too, who sort of put this year together on the crazy idea that voting ought to be easy and counting ought to be quick and accurate. Hollins took a lot of the heat because a lot of the Republican action against some of these voting innovations came from Harris County, where he's the county clerk. He had drive-through voting this year. That went to court. He put out applications for absentee ballots to people who hadn't asked for them. They didn't have to send them back in, but if you wanted to vote by mail, you could do that. He had 24-hour voting in the last days of early voting and did a lot of things, and also proved to the Republicans that a big, fat turnout doesn't necessarily mean a Democratic turnout. That's
a good point. Here's a question I've had for a while, and I've even asked Chris this. Where do you guys see him in the Democratic Party? Because clearly the state party needs this new generation of leaders to emerge. I think he is probably one of those. Do you guys see him running for a statewide office, or do you see him staying in Harris County and Houston there?
I thought his chances might be.
Everyone here, go ahead, Bud. You start us off, man.
I think he and Judge Hidalgo are future Democratic stars, and I think the Democrats will look to Harris County for leadership.
Good point. Bernadine?
And someone who's willing to step out and do the things that is needed. I think he's definitely going to go statewide because they need new leadership and they need new candidates. But he's a rising star.
Yeah, I agree. Lena Hidalgo, the county judge in Harris County there, I think she's in her early 30s. And you know, what Chris Hollins is in his early 30s as well, too. So I think they'll have, quite a bit more to give the state, and they're definitely in that. Go ahead, Bud.
Jason, 24-hour voting rocks. I think 24-hour voting is here to stay.
I hope that third week is as well, too. It made things a lot more convenient. All right, we have a lot more names to go here this morning. We have Kay Granger coming up next, Louis Gohmert, Black Lives Matter, and the Texas Democratic Party. You're watching the annual Turkey Awards here at Inside Texas Politics. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're handing out Thanksgiving leftovers here this morning on Inside Texas Politics. It's our annual Turkey Awards, and we're giving out turkey legs to those politicos who have had a great year, and those who've not had the best year they probably could have. They get the gizzard this morning. So let's resume our list, and the next award is a gizzard coming from Bud.
I think we have to give gizzards to the Open Texas protesters. Now, this is really mixing animals, but I think the Open Texas protesters might be the bum steers of the year for Texas. They wanted barbershops open. They wanted fitness gyms and beer joints open. They mocked the coronavirus. They made fun of all the concerns. They said business was more important. And basically, it's the old Tea Party crowd. It's just basically they started the Hate Abbott Club and ran around the state, protesting. It was all too soon. They put too much pressure on to open up. More than when bars opened up after the protest, more than half of the spike of the summer traced to bars in some parts of Texas. I think the Open Texas protest drove a lot of the summer spike.
But at the end of the day, they were successful in forcing the governor to do these things, weren't they?
And why should they have been? I mean, the same miserable bunch of complainers who complain about constitutional carry, who complain about everything else that the governor or the speaker of the Texas legislature have done. A small faction in the Texas Republican Party, although now they have the party chairman, Allen West, as one of their numbers.
Was your Thanksgiving table like this, like it is here at Inside Texas Politics this morning? I see Bernadine like shaking her head and just doing things like that.
What else is left to say? He said it all. But I will say that one thing that the group, it takes the risk of being ineffective completely. And but anyway, Bud said it all.
All right, we'll
let say Uncle Bud pass the cranberries.
Yeah, exactly. The next award this morning, it is a turkey leg from Bernadine.
Yes, I'm giving a leg to the Black Lives Matter movement because this is one movement that captured the world, and not only that, it was led by young people. And the young people took hold of this movement and protested, voiced that Black lives do matter, and that every life should be given everything that they should be given. And I think that it definitely needed. Matter of fact, I would have given two legs if I could have, because not only did it capture the movement of young people, they went and voted. They didn't just protest, and they were willing to protest, and no one could stop them, because they led themselves. And I think it's a movement that is going to continue, and one that we have not seen in a long time.
And you know what struck me about Black Lives Matter, guys, is that it didn't have a central leader anywhere, anytime. This was just kind of organic. It was people in cities all across our state, all across the nation, and around the world. That's what struck me. But yeah, I agree, Bernadine, that the Black Lives Matter movement indeed does get attention this morning.
Jason, I saw some old fellas in there. I saw Dale Hansen talking about it. I saw Randy Galloway speaking at a Black Lives Matter march. There were a lot of it rallied a lot of people, and not just young people. It rallied a lot of Americans.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens in the coming few years on how what happens to the movement. How does it galvanize political influence? Those are the open-ended questions for me. I'm curious.
Well, I think it's already galvanizing the political influence by the mere fact of his stability and staying power. But we will see, and I don't think it's going away. It's just that, remember, the campaign has taken all of the coverage now. Yeah. So you're looking more at President Trump and what he's doing with the presidential election.
All right, the next award this morning is actually mine. It is a turkey leg, and it is going to Congresswoman Kay Granger from Tarrant County. She did something that no other Republican in this state had the guts to do. She told the president the election's over, to go ahead and begin the transition. And so while so many Republicans were cowering in the corner, Granger actually spoke truth to power. Politically, yeah, it was a risky move, and she might actually regret it later on, but at the time it was the right move, and it really it's for the greater good of the country, I think.
You know what? I don't think it was a risky move, because keep in mind, she just came out of a hard-fought race, and she won by a comfortable margin. So her constituents, her voters are telling her, we support you.
Any thoughts on that, guys?
You know, the Republicans that were not at the top of the ballot actually had a very good election year, and it's always been sort of dissonant to complain on behalf of the president about an election that you won. So she was one of the people that didn't do that.
Yeah, indeed so. Ross, you actually have the next one, and this is kind of low-hanging fruit here, like your first one, man.
This is classic big hat, no cattle. The Texas Democrats get a gizzard this year. What a miss. They bragged before they got to the election, and then they didn't produce up to their brags. They said they were going to turn Texas blue. They barely held their ground, and that's why I'm giving them a gizzard this year.
No arguing there. I mean, come on. They overpromised, underdelivered. What happens to the party moving forward here? We talked about Lena Hidalgo. We talked about Chris Hollins, whether they might start rising up through the ranks. But do they have a kind of a come to Jesus and talk about where they go from here, or what, Bud?
Well, they just need more organization. I want to point out that was a very expensive gizzard for them too. They spent a lot of money. They rallied a lot of money from across the country. And there's a lot of people who are not going to give any money in Texas again for a long time. They have to rebuild their bridges in the valley to voters in the valley and Latino voters. They have to get all the Democrats back on board. They didn't even have all the Democrats this cycle.
Bud, go ahead. You have the next award here. It is a turkey leg.
Yeah, I want to be sure that we talk about doctors. You know, doctors like Peter Hotez in Houston, John Hellerstedt, the head of the Department of Health Services. You know, all the doctors who are trying to make politicians stop politicking. You know, Texas Medical Association, people who've been really telling the truth this whole year in the face of this immense political pressure to go away and shut up and be quiet. You know, Hotez has done a great job of speaking out nationally. Hellerstedt very quietly has led the state health department. If we'd listen to our doctors more, we'd be better off.
I think you're probably right there, Bud. Bernadine, you have the next award.
Okay, then I hate to give the president a gizzard, but quite frankly, he deserves it, particularly in the sense that he's tried to disenfranchise blacks in those battleground states. I mean, most of the counties and precincts that he targeted, that he wanted to get rid of the votes, were all in predominantly black precincts and counties. And I think it was just unconscionable and actually remarkable that that President Trump's campaign would go about trying to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of voters, and most of them were black voters.
Don't hate to give out gizzards, because we've been handing them out like crazy here this morning.
I understand, but he is the president of the United States of America until January the 20th. And as I said, when we first talked about the fact that he did not want to give up that office, he had a right. He had a right to exhaust all of the legal.
Of course.
Yes, but he didn't have the right to disenfranchise voters, particularly those, so many of them.
All right, we have a few names left to go here this morning. We have Louis Gohmert, Glenn Whitley, and Greg Abbott. He's actually making another appearance here in our Turkey Awards this morning. We're back in just a moment. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. This is our annual Turkey Award, so let's resume right now with Bernadine Steptoe, and you have a turkey leg for our next winner here this morning.
Yes, I'd like to give a leg to the Tarrant County Judge, Glenn Whitley, who is still standing up for local control, even in the face of a pandemic. And he did get a lot of pushback, but he deserves a leg. And
the judge there in Tarrant County is a Republican, of course. The next one is mine. It's a gizzard. This is for Congressman Louis Gohmert from East Texas. You might have seen this in our program recently. Gohmert told Trump supporters that they should consider revolution over the election results. Now, Gohmert said outlandish things before, but that's pretty irresponsible, especially when you consider words really matter. This rhetoric right now especially is uncalled for, in my opinion there. That's what all this is. These are our opinions this morning. Ross, you have the next one.
This one's easy. I've got a leg for hospitals, doctors, nurses, and other medical workers who are heroes in regular life every day, and now they've gone above and beyond that. What haven't they done for us?
Yeah, exactly. And the whole point of wearing masks and staying inside, not traveling for the holidays, hope you didn't go anywhere for the holidays, is to, take it easy on these hospital workers. And, people are talking about how crowded the hospitals could be in the coming weeks. So we hope that does not happen. Our final award this morning is a name that you heard this morning out of Bud's own mouth. And he's going to tell us why he's not changing his mind, but he's also looking at the other side of the coin. Go ahead, Bud.
Oh, Jason, we gave Greg Abbott a big turkey leg for the elections, but COVID-19, for 4 months he was such a slow and steady leader, things to be going well. But then he started trusting the bar owners. He let bars open before they should. He let local governments pass mask mandates that they can't enforce. The Open Texas orders are all tangled up. Bars can't have dancing unless they sell chips. Then there are restaurants they can have dancing. Nobody knows what the rules are, who enforces them, or how. I think Governor Abbott and maybe his legal staff, deserve a gizzard to go from the turkey dinner.
And his legal staff, maybe his political staff as well too. So Greg Abbott making an appearance twice here on the Turkey Awards. Guys, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving weekend too. So there you have it, our 2020 Turkey Awards this morning. I'm sure there are other names that you probably think should be on the lists. If there are some, you can tell me on Twitter. You can find me there at Jason Whiteley. Hope you have a good rest of the weekend, and we'll see you back here again next Sunday. Take care.